Today we're going to be talking about the third game in the Elder Scrolls series, Morrowind. However, this guide is not for experienced players or people who love the game to death. This is for people who have the game but just couldn't get through it because it's too far back from modern Elder Scrolls games, such as Oblivion and Skyrim. That's why this video is titled Modernizing Morrowind. That's what we're going to be doing. Now, when I say modernizing Morrowind, what I mean is, first, enhancing the graphics, 2, fixing the bugs, 3, expanding several game functionalities, and 4, fixing the combat system to be more in line with Oblivion and Skyrim. What do I mean? Oblivion and Skyrim are not RPGs strictly, they're action RPGs. You see, in Daggerfall, Arena, and pretty much all the early Elder Scrolls games, your ability to hit the enemy was based on an internal dice roll. And so you could actually, in Morrowind, hit the enemy with your sword, and you hear this swish noise, or a chink noise, and you do no damage to them. Well, functions have been changed. What's going to end up happening is you're going to hit an enemy, and it's going to do damage, but the amount of damage you actually deal will be variable instead. Several other functions will be changed as well. But that's basically what we're getting into. It is a complete overhaul of Morrowind and its functions. Now, obviously, the first step to modernizing Morrowind is actually owning Morrowind. And I'm assuming that you have the game, specifically the Game of the Year edition, as it will be required for this. If you don't have the Game of the Year edition, I recommend picking it up on Steam, because it will be fully up to date. None of these mods or patches will be likely to work if the game is not fully updated. If you happen to have an old disc version of the game, you're going to need to go to Bethesda's website and download patches for the game. Once you've confirmed that the game is installed and set up, launch the game once. You don't need to actually get into or play the game. Merely going to the title screen is enough. You see, certain initialization files are generated when the game is first launched. So by going to the title screen, inside the game, we've basically fixed a lot of potential problems that a lot of people encounter when they try to mod the game for the first time. Go ahead and exit the game. Now, the first link you're going to want to visit in the video description for this video is the Morrowind Overhaul link. After you go to Morrowind Overhaul's site, go ahead and click on Morrowind Overhaul and click on Releases. After the Releases page loads, scroll down and access the Nexus link. Now, there are several mods that are titled Morrowind Overhaul, but this is the procedure in which you're going to get the mod I'm talking about, which is Morrowind Overhaul - Sounds and Graphics. This includes a copy of the famed Morrowind Graphics Extender, which will add all kinds of things to your game. However, this package goes one step further. The Morrowind Overhaul should be roughly 1.6 gigabytes in size. If you have any trouble installing it, be sure to refer to the PDF included in the zip file. It will explain to you what it requires, it will explain to you the procedure for installation, and it will give you their website. As the installation guide says, extract the entire contents of the zip file into your Morrowind directory, be it under Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Morrowind, or anywhere else that it might be. Remember that pirated versions of the game, specifically ones that have been cracked to not use CDs, probably will not work with this. Once the zip file has been extracted to your Morrowind directory, go ahead and run the moinstaller.exe file by right-clicking it and select Run as Administrator. Note that the Morrowind Overhaul most likely will not run on Linux installations using Wine or any other sort of emulated environments, and will require an actual copy of Windows. Now, this setup program is very detailed. You'll see icons that look like a kind of radiation symbol. Those are automated steps. The installer will actually take control of your keyboard and mouse and perform functions on Morrowind, basically rewriting files and things of that nature, things that it needs to do manually. Now, keep in mind that when you see steps like those, you are not to mess with your keyboard or mouse. You basically let it go, and it will perform the actions for you, because the automated macro knows exactly where to click and exactly what to do. Due to the number of changes this performs on your Morrowind directory, If you screw this up, you may have to completely reinstall Morrowind before attempting it again. Click Next. Now it's going to check to see if everything is valid. If any of these come up no, you're going to have to fix them. Assuming everything is ready, click Next. It will check to see if your graphics card drivers are up to date. Next, it'll check to see if you have the proper DirectX version that the enhanced version of Morrowind uses. As long as you have DirectX 9.0C, then you can go ahead and proceed. However, if you're unsure if you have it, there is no harm done by reinstalling it. The same can be said of the Visual C++ 2008 redistributable, and exactly the same with the .NET frameworks. Alright, at copying files and backup, this is where you can choose to spend a lot of time creating a backup version of Morrowind. If you're using the Steam version, this really isn't too much of an issue. You can save time simply by re-downloading Morrowind, assuming you screw anything up. But if you don't have the Steam version, or you don't have a very fast internet connection, it is advisable to take the time to make a backup of your directory. And if you do feel like you need to back up your installation of Morrowind, you can go ahead and click this little checkbox here. However, since I actually have a backup version of Morrowind ready to just roll in at a moment's notice already, I don't need to do that. So click here to extract files. What it's going to do is you let go of your mouse because it is literally going to take control of your computer. Do not mess with the keyboard. It may take anywhere from about 30 seconds to 5-10 minutes depending on the speed of your computer and how fast it can access the hard drive. But basically, the package that's 1.6 gigabytes is fairly compressed, and it's going to extract all of those files for you. You're going to see various prompts such as this bar and a message box in the top corner that's being obscured right now. It's going to decompress itself up to about 4 or 5 gigabytes in size. What this is are the enhanced textures, the enhanced models, and the voice acting for some of the main characters, such as Vivek, Dagoth-Ur, Amalexia. These characters that they were living gods, but they really didn't have any voice acting. Now their dialogue will be voiced. Now, as for which specific enhancements will be installed out of what it's extracting, that will be up to us in a later section. After it's done installing, it's going to ask you what preset you want. Now, this is important because it's going to give you a listing of recommended options. And basically, it goes from slow PC to medium PC to fast PC to very fast PC. And basically, how modern, how high the graphics are automatically set to is dependent on which one you do. However, trying to go very fast and then having a very slow computer is going to have a completely unplayable Morrowind. However, on the other hand, if you have a very fast computer and you set it to slow PC, then it's going to look a lot better than normal Morrowind, yes, but it's not going to look as good as it could be. The leaps and bounds between each level are huge. Now, my graphics card and memory are more than adequate. However, the processor is a little bit behind the times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dial it back from very fast PC to just fast PC. And if you're always unsure, take it down a notch just for playability's sake. And if you ever have any major issues with performance, again, just dial it back a notch. Most but not all of the improvements that are going to come with this package come from the Morrowind code patch, and a lot of them are going to be off by default, so we're going to go over each of the things. Rain and snow collision is going to cause rain and snow to change from being a screen overlay where it just passes through everything into an actual, like, overhangs will protect against snow and rain, and it will actually collide with objects. Now again, if you're trying to reduce the load on your computer, you can obviously turn that off. However, it isn't a very big option. The second option is going to make enchanted items and things of that nature, their glow will actually affect the environment. Almost no impact on your performance whatsoever. Now the third one, the over-the-shoulder third-person view, entirely preference. By default, The third-person view is directly behind your character. It's kind of awkward, whereas you can have your character zoomed in a little more with an over-the-shoulder view. It's entirely up to you if you want this feature. I'm going to have it turned on. Alright, as for the camera clipping, the way it works is in third-person perspective. Say you have something walking by you or otherwise passing through the camera. The camera is defaulted to basically push away from the object or otherwise snap back into your body, and in pretty much every aspect it sucks. It's not very good at doing that. So this reduces how often it'll do that, it reduces the magnitude by which it'll move, and basically makes the camera more consistent, which is great for dense areas. Now, by default, you have to hold down the sneak button in order to be sneaking. This changes sneak to a toggle. You may or may not want to use this with a later mod that I will explain. I personally am going to have this turned off, and I will explain later in the later sections. However, if you don't plan to be using a shield for shield block, then don't worry about this specific feature, and you can have toggle sneak turned on. Swift casting is something you're going to want to look at. It changes the way casting works. It's neither better nor worse, and I haven't really played with it, so I can't really speak to it. In vanilla Morrowind, pickpocketing was a broken mechanic. This not only fixes pickpocketing, but it also changes the rules of it, making heavier items harder to steal, and things of that nature. In vanilla Morrowind, enchanted items are ridiculously overpowered, and it makes casting spells yourself feel kinda silly when you could cast them through an item, and there's a 10 times multiplier applied to max skill, which again, defeats the purpose of you casting things yourself. This rebalances it, brings the enchanted items in line with your casting if you were actually casting it as a mage. It is kind of a nerf, but if you don't care about God mode status and you actually want a fair and balanced game, this is something I recommend using. Item recharging was actually quite ineffective in vanilla Morrowind, and the item enchanting rebalance actually fixes that. So you're actually going to have some protection against failing and things of that nature based on your skill, which is really good. Soul gems were freaking broken in terms of their value in vanilla Morrowind. This meant that if you sold a soul gem, you'd get a fortune worth of gold. You basically get all the gold the vendor had. Likewise, if you tried to buy one, it would be far too expensive for you to ever consider buying. Well, the soul gem value rebalance simply brings everything to a more sane level. I recommend turning on arrow enchanting. If you decide you want to use arrows, then you can enchant them now. Now, if you wanted to make a profit being an enchanter, specifically, you can turn this on where enchanting increases the value of the item. This is something that was inherent in Oblivion and Skyrim, but didn't quite make it into Morrowind. The extra ring slot is literally that. It adds an extra slot for you to use a ring on. Previously, fortify health potions and things of that nature fortified your current health. So your maximum health was basically extended by whatever your current health was and not your maximum health. Now, with this on, it will fortify both your maximum health and your current health, so your current health will extend, and your maximum health will extend equally. It's basically the way it works in Oblivion and Skyrim. Now, in vanilla Morrowind, your speed that you moved at was proportional to the size of your character. Some races are smaller, some races are taller, and the result is that there were 95 to 135% speed variances. And it didn't really make much sense. What this does is it basically fixes it so that everyone moves at the same speed. Now, if you want to make the game significantly more difficult, this tweak, NPC AI zero cost powers. It's basically like Revenge of the Enemies for Skyrim, except in Morrowind, basically all of the racial abilities that cost nothing that they start with, those races will be able to use on you. And some of them are very cheesy. Some of them make the game very challenging for you. But it makes you very aware of what races you are fighting. and in my opinion, it is a welcome addition to the game. But keep in mind that if you aren't up for the challenge, and you want to play at a higher difficulty level without worrying about different racial abilities that your enemies may have, it might not be too good to turn on. Now, if you're playing a thief character, or you want to play a non-lethal character who uses unarmed to beat people up until they get knocked out, yes, you can do non-lethal combat. And then you steal from them, basically rob their unconscious body. This will allow you to do that. Previously, if you tried to steal from somebody when they were knocked out, you would get the "you are in combat" message. But this allows you to basically play a non-lethal thief if you want. I recommend turning it on because it also allows you to talk with certain NPCs you couldn't talk to normally, if you can sneak up on them and try to talk to them before they aggro. But otherwise, it doesn't change anything else. It's just a neat little Easter egg, because some NPCs who are evil actually do have things to say. It's just that they never get the opportunity to say them unless they are under the influence of a calm spell. This next option, exhaust enemies with damage fatigue, basically, you could previously use either poisons or unarmed combat to knock an enemy out. As their fatigue bar goes to 0, your next hit will basically cause them to fall unconscious. Well, damage fatigue, which was a mage spell, could never accomplish that. You usually had to get their fatigue level all the way down and then punch them. And in this case, exhaust NPCs with damage fatigue spell is actually able to knock them out. It's really good for basically pure mage characters or even hybrids. I recommend turning it on. Previously, unlike with melee weapons, hand-to-hand would never be influenced by anything but your hand-to-hand skill. This allows your strength to add a slight multiplier to your hand-to-hand damage. This is perfect for a hand-to-hand using character, but it also influences werewolves. So if you intend to be a werewolf, this can make you into basically an unstoppable killing machine, but it will do the same thing to NPC werewolves as well. So keep that in mind. I still recommend turning it on, and you can turn down the difficulty if you're fighting a werewolf that is owning your face. Now, scroll down to interface changes, and you're going to want the map extension for Tamriel Rebuilt. Keep in mind that earlier saved games, before this patch is added, may not actually update for this. So this is for a brand new character. But what this is going to do is, we are going to be installing a different mod later called Tamriel Rebuilt, which is going to add a lot more of the mainland of Morrowind to your game. And because we're going to be adding more to the game, we've expanded the map beyond just the island of Vardenfell where Morrowind takes place. Now, depending on the resolution you want to run the game at, I highly recommend unrestricting the menu size, because otherwise you might be stuck with either small or large menus that you aren't happy with. So now you'll be able to drag the menus to the size you want. You'll notice all kinds of bug fixes that have automatically been turned on, which are welcome additions, and will in general make your game a much better one. Once you're sure that you've got all the options you want, go ahead and click Apply Chosen Patches. The next step is an automated step, so just go ahead and click Launch and let go of your keyboard. What's going to happen is the macro is going to perform changes, and then it'll be done. The next thing that's going to run is the executable optimizer. This is going to actually hack your Morrowind executable to remove pieces of code that caused crashes and insert other pieces of code that basically stabilize the game and its performance. After you navigate to your Morrowind folder, go ahead and hit OK and let go once again. So after it's applied 120 code fixes to Morrowind, then you can launch the options. Keep in mind that green settings will have almost no impact on your performance. Yellow options will have a moderate to large impact, and red values will have a huge impact on your performance and should only be used on a very high-end computer. Now remember that you can always come back in here and change these options, and there really is no right way to do this. If you encounter massive lag in your game, you're going to want to come back to this and then change things until they're the way you want them. But for the first set of options, what this does is it changes the way the various parts of the game look. Here's an example. In the Ashlands, which is more or less the center of Vardenfell, you can go ahead and mouse over this, and you'll see that it adds a lot of detail. It adds these huge trees, which look really cool, but that has a moderate performance impact. Whereas less of them, it still looks really good, it just doesn't look as good. And that's pretty much how it works. For example, under the Grazelands, the difference between light and then medium is pretty apparent using the exact same spot with different screenshots. Now, where you start the game, and the generally most popular city in the game is known as Balmorra. And the Balmorra area, we can see 3 different possibilities. First, light, then somewhat dense, and then mostly dense. So you can see these different options aren't really that different, but at the same time, it's always good to experiment and see what you personally like. Now, some of the options I absolutely love. Some important NPCs actually do have a unique voice actor for them. Previously, they didn't have a voice actor, and all lines they had were simply text. This fixes that. Now, as for the Dagoth voices, previously Dagoth used to speak to you in a big text box. Now, he will actually have a voice-acted call to you during your dreams, which is pretty damn awesome in my opinion. Now, fireplaces, animated containers, these are all cool things, but they aren't needed. I recommend using them, because they have almost no impact on your game's performance at all. Now, I personally love animated Morrowind, but it does have a moderate to high influence on your game's performance, so you may or may not want it. Now, you notice that there is a heads option and then a better bodies option. I'd personally recommend better bodies with underwear, but you can change it the way you see fit. Nude is an option. Once you've selected all the things you want here, be sure to go over to MGE. I personally recommend MGE XE, which is the latest and best version of the Morrowind graphics extender, which is going to change all these different effects. Basically, that is what we saw earlier. The way it works is the further down the list you go, the more compatible. However, generally speaking, all modern computers can run the XE version. If for any reason you run into any problems with your operating system, your graphics card, things of that nature, then go down the list and try the next one, and usually version 178 is compatible with pretty much everything that I've seen. Under no circumstances I recommend not using the Morrowind graphics extender, which is at the bottom there. I still recommend personally using the XE version. Either way, once you've decided what you want to do, just go ahead and hit apply. You'll notice a green bar over there. We'll do a few things. It's actually updating a lot of configuration files. And depending on the speed of your hard drive and your processor, this may take some time. The bar took about 3 minutes to process for me. However, for some people, it may take upwards of 20. Keep in mind that after it's done, it will automatically run a macro, and then it will have you launch the Morrowind launcher. Keep in mind that after you hit the Morrowind launcher, you're going to want to relinquish control of your mouse. Simply click it and let go. And what will happen is it'll open up the Morrowind launcher, it will go to options, and it will set everything up for you. The next step is disabling the Steam overlay for Morrowind. To do this, right-click on Morrowind in your game's library, then go to Properties. After you're on Properties, go ahead and make sure that Enable the Steam Overlay while in-game is unchecked. As long as this box is unchecked, then you won't have any issues with your game. Once it is disabled, go ahead and click Next. If you've been following my channel, you know about loot or BOSS for Skyrim and Oblivion. To optimize your load order, this is going to do the exact same thing automatically, because it just installed a hell of a lot of mods and now it's going to optimize them for you. Those of you who jumped on Skyrim early know all about the 4 GB patch. Originally, Skyrim could only use 3 GB of memory, verging on 4. But that was basically Windows' limit. Well, now we've got better operating systems. We've got 64-bit operating systems. I've got 8 GB of RAM. My friends typically run with 16. Therefore, we're going to want to install this patch, which will allow it to use more than 4 GB of RAM. Click the box, you let go of your keyboard, and allow it to automatically process for you. It's going to give you the option to do some manual configuration tweaks if you want. However, it is not necessary. Some of the options that are allowed for you. Now, I've never had an issue with tearing, so I'm going to turn off VSync. I don't need an FPS counter telling me how much it dips. My video recorder will do that for me. I'm going to go ahead and reduce this to, say, 4 times. Anti-aliasing, I'm going to be a cheap ass and bring that down to 2 times. And that's it for the global settings. Now for the shaders, as you can see, bloom and HDR, we're having ambient occlusion turned off, but there's all kinds of options that you can have on if you want. Now if you have an older computer, you're only going to want to use these lower shaders and basically nothing else. Keep that in mind. For distant land, you'll be able to select whether or not you'll be able to see great distances. Low quality chunks of land that were generated off in the distance. When you're done, hit OK and then click Next. It's going to ask you if you're absolutely certain you want to use the user-defined values if you changed anything. If you didn't change anything and you do it with just what the installer said to use, then this pop-up will not appear. However, it's basically giving you the option to back out and automatically reset everything to default and go with what the installer wanted to give you. You can or can't do it. It's always safer to use the default values, but I know what I'm doing. Therefore, I'm going to click Yes. Now it's going to ask you to select your resolution. For a good balance of older high definition versus performance, 1280 by 720 has always been my personal favorite, so we're going to go with that. But if you feel the need, you can put in a manual value to pretty much whatever you want, as long as it is a valid resolution. The next thing it'll ask you is where you want to install your screenshots. Put it wherever you want and then hit OK. You'll notice that the macros are going to basically customize everything for you based on your earlier settings. It may take some time for it to process all the options. Resist the urge to mess with your mouse or keyboard. This whole process may take anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes. You'll notice that the longest lasting portion of this is generating the distant textures. And that's because distant textures, the whole distant lands concept, did not exist in Morrowind. This is a concept from Oblivion and Skyrim that they are basically reverse engineered to work in Morrowind. So after about anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes, it should give you the congratulations message, hit OK, and it should close out the program entirely. Go down to mgexegui.exe. Once that's open, go to In-Game and disable the internal Morrowind script extender. Once that's done, you can close the program. Download the Morrowind script extender. Just use the link at the bottom of the video description to get to this page here. It's at Bethesda's official forums. Go ahead and click on the download link here, which will take you to GitHub, where you can download the alpha here. For the Morrowind script extender, go ahead and install it into your main Morrowind directory. You'll want to run the MWSE launcher. Always have that running in the background when you're playing Morrowind. And you can go ahead and click Launch Morrowind if you have a non-Steam version. However, if you have a Steam version, go ahead and leave this box open and then go launch your Steam version. The MWSE launcher will automatically detect that Steam has opened your game and will inject the script extender into the Steam version. If you had any pop-ups here that said the script stopped running, that means that the script extender did not work properly. However, if you get to the name dialog without issues, then congratulations, your Morrowind is completely set up. Oblivion-Like Combat Tweaks is the next mod we're going to be using. This mod is actually located on Bethesda's official forums, and I will have a link to that in the video description. What this is going to do is it's going to give both you and enemies 100% hit chance. Normally, this would break the way Morrowind works, and there are many mods like this out there on the internet, but they are broken. This fixes it by having weapon skill affecting damage, and real-time blocking, where when you hit crouch, the sneak key, for 0.5 seconds after you hit crouch, it will enter block mode, and you will basically have 100% chance to block at that exact moment, and then the chance will reduce over time. So basically, when you think they're going to hit you, you put your block up, and that's achieved by the sneak key. That's why I recommended earlier not to have sneak on a toggle, because that kind of messes up this function. But it basically gives you an active blocking mode, somewhat like Oblivion and Skyrim, and gives you the ability to do timed blocks for no damage to you, basically. Now it adds sprinting back into the game, where you can use up stamina in order to sprint. Now Magicka didn't used to regenerate unless you used a potion or you rested. Magicka regenerates now. If you get behind enemies and you're using your fists, it will do a skill check to knock them out. Likewise, if you have a dagger or any other kind of short blade, you will be able to assassinate them, instantly kill them. But critical hits, NPCs that are being attacked calling town guards to assist them, fatigue effects, all these things we've gotten used to in later Elder Scrolls games have been brought into Morrowind in a fair and balanced way. This is the main reason I made this video, was to showcase this particular mod. Because basically, everyone who I've talked to who just couldn't get back into Morrowind, it wasn't because of the lack of voice acting, it wasn't because the graphics were lower quality, it was because of the combat system and the fact that they couldn't reliably hit their enemy despite the fact they were physically making contact with the enemy. Well, because weapon skill and stats now influence how much damage you do, it is completely okay to have a 100% chance to hit on both sides. Now keep in mind, this is a double-edged sword, because enemies won't just be swiping at you and nothing happening. If an enemy successfully hits you, they will successfully hit you, and your defensive skills along with your armor and whether or not you're blocking will determine everything. Now this mod does require the Morrowind graphics extender, does require the Morrowind script extender, which is installed as a part of the Overhaul. That's why I went and explained the Overhaul first, because you really do not want to try to use this mod with vanilla Morrowind. It simply will not work properly. If you have trouble downloading the mod, go and skip to the last page of the forum post, where you'll find an alternate download link. Once downloaded, go ahead and extract it into your Morrowind directory directly. Noticing that it will extract files into data files, docs, it'll include a TES tool, but we don't need to worry about any of that right now. Hit OK. Once extracted, the mod is installed but not set up. We're going to get to setting up this mod after we've installed all the others. The reason is because this is going to run a kind of patch similar to a Skyproc patcher does for Skyrim, in order to make sure that all other mods you have are compatible. So we're going to install those other mods first, and then we'll get back to setting this up toward the end of the video. Tamriel Rebuilt. This mod set out to add all of Tamriel into the Morrowind engine. This was long before Oblivion was announced, and it was a very ambitious project. Unfortunately, it was a little bit too ambitious, and the whole thing had to be scrapped. Much of the work was not professional quality, and they knew that. And so, starting over again and again, they refined it and they perfected it. What they've done so far, at professional quality levels, they have completed this section of Morrowind up to the pink line here. So, whereas previously, you only got to explore a little area here in the Tribunal expansion, and for the most part in the main game you were stuck here, and then in Blood Moon you got to go over here. Well, thanks to Tamriel Rebuilt, we get the entire Sacred East. What do I mean by professional quality? This is what we'd expect of the Morrowind mainland, something that was denied us in the game. Amazing locations fleshed out with NPCs and everything we'd want. The reason for this particular release is what they ended up doing is they ended up splitting their project into chunks, and they focused on one specific chunk instead of what they were doing earlier, which is divvying up the land and basically giving it to everybody. They really focused, and they completed a chunk, and then they're moving on to the next chunk. And through this release schedule, you can see the green is almost done, the yellow is not so done, and so on all the way up to red, where they're still producing the thing. But in this case, we're going to install the Sacred East module. We've already checked the extended map option so that we'll be able to pan our Morrowind map out, and as we travel to Sacred East, it will be mapped for us. Just go ahead and download Tamriel Rebuilt. This includes both the main release and an alpha file containing all the unreleased land. We're going to have the alpha file off. You can turn it on if you want, but I recommend just sticking with the areas that are complete and up to professional quality standards. Installation is dirt simple. Just make sure the data files from Tamriel Rebuilt are going into Morrowind's data files. The current release is about half a gigabyte. The next mod I recommend is Delayed DB Attack B2 by Kier. What this mod does, it's very simple. Whenever you go to sleep, it runs a script. That script will ask, have you progressed far enough in Morrowind's main quest, and are you of a certain level? If both conditions are yes, then a Dark Brotherhood member will attack you in your sleep, something that is part of the Tribunal questline. However, there were no actual controls in the vanilla version, meaning that you could be level 1 and a Dark Brotherhood member who's about level 10 or 20 will come and stab your face in. And it was very unfun. When this script is working correctly, you won't even know it's on. As with the others, install it directly into your Morrowind data files directory. The next mod I recommend fixes cliff racers, these very annoying birds that literally go vroom, vroom, and attack you. They usually come in massive numbers and just seem to attack you over and over and over. Well, what this does is it adds these random cliff racers that aren't hostile, so only about half the cliff racers you encounter will actually be hostile. As this is not hosted on the Nexus, I can't guarantee this file's status. However, I will have the link up in the video description for however how long it is. Now, in addition to the 2 expansion packs that come with the special edition of the game, you will also have access to these official plugins that Bethesda developed for Morrowind, and as you can see right here, are not included with the Game of the Year edition. What that means is that a lot of people who just get the Game of the Year edition and jump in miss out on these. I recommend downloading all of them, from Entertainers to Bitter Coast Sounds, Area of Effect Arrows, The Helm, but if you download absolutely nothing else, download these 3, the Master Index, which if you're going to be a member of the Mages Guild, it's going to allow you to basically create a teleportation network of fast travel. Fast travel in its basic form doesn't exist in Morrowind, but this helps you once you progress far enough. Now, Adamantium Armor was a thing in Daggerfall. They've added it back in via this plugin. Finally, the Siege, which is really cool. I will have a link to this UESP page in the video description. So when you've finished going through your mod list and picking the mods you want, go ahead and go back to your Morrowind data files folder. Once you navigate in there, find the mencmg.exe file. This is basically the Morrowind combat module program. When you run it, it's going to do basically what a Skyproc patcher did and generate files for you. You may see nothing change. It may take a little while in order for it to boot up. Now basically you'll see this little patcher pop up. It will generate a merged ESP file. Now you don't have to open up anything, you don't have to change anything. When it prompts you to find a file, just cancel out of it, and it should be done now. When you exit out of the program, you will see 2 new merged ESP files. These ESP files basically contain all of the weapons and whatnot that you've had from other mods, except it has merged it all together. Now on your plugin list, you're going to want to make sure that these plugins load last so that they overwrite the data from all your other mods. It's just like either Patches Maximus or Requiem for the Indifferent for Skyrim. It is basically taking the data from the other mods, customizing it, and then overwriting that selective data. Now once you've got everything done, go back into your Morrowind folder, launch your mgso.exe, the options that is, and click OK. Once the main menu pops up, go ahead and select Miscellaneous and sort your load order. It updated the load order for you. Go ahead and exit now. Now, assuming you aren't using a mod manager of any sort, make sure to go into the data files section of the launcher and enable any of the mods such as the Dark Brotherhood attack mod, Tamriel Rebuilt, and the combat mod. I do not recommend turning on the Tamriel Rebuilt alpha plugin because that adds unfinished content to the game. Frequently asked questions. I heard that the Morrowind graphics extender XE edition actually had a script extender installed. Why would you go and disable the internal one and then use an external one? That doesn't make any sense. Well, the reason you do this is because that version of the script extender is actually incompatible with a great many system setups, and problems often occur that can easily be solved by running the script extender externally. If you manage to get away with not having to run the extender and using the internal one without crashing ever, then congratulations. I'm trying to change my graphics settings or generate distant terrain, but the Morrowind graphics extender utility crashes while processing every single time, or won't even start processing. Crash, crash, crash! This is caused when the data in your Morrowind graphics extender gets corrupted. Simply delete the MGE3 directory from your Morrowind folder. After doing that, run the mgso options.exe file. Tell it to change the mgso settings, pick the version of the graphics extender you want, and then apply. It will reinstall the graphics extender that you deleted, a clean version that is uncorrupted. You are then free to go back into the options and regenerate distant land here from this menu. Keep in mind that you may need to re-disable the internal script extender, and you will need to reinstall the Morrowind script extender. But once this is done, you should have a new and fully functional version of the Morrowind graphics extender program. If the issue ever happens again, just re-delete the folder and regenerate the graphics extender once more. However, to my experience, this issue only occurs on very specific hardware setups and only occurs when changing your graphics settings or generating distant terrain, not when actually playing Morrowind, meaning when you get a graphics setup you are happy with and you no longer need to change the options, then you will never encounter this issue ever. Okay, so I've watched your entire video. I've done everything you've told me to do, but Morrowind still crashes when I try to launch a new game. The most common reason for the crash, again, is forgetting to disable the internal script extender in the Morrowind graphics extender settings. Your motherboard, processor, or graphics card, or operating system is not compatible with the XE version. Try going into the options and try switching to the Morrowind graphics extender 186 or lower versions, and you probably won't have the same problem. If you're running the Steam version, you need to launch it through Steam. Double click on it or hit play on your game's library. Do not run the program directly. It will not function properly because there's DRM that will cause the game to crash. Keep in mind that cracked pirated versions and the versions you get from digital download sites such as Direct2Drive are not the same version you get either in retail or on Steam, and as a result will not work. Now, mods are 2/3 of the problem. However, a lot of people also have trouble getting into Morrowind because they don't entirely understand the game mechanics and would like a jump into it. So I'm going to go over my starting character right now. This character I just created, Zhakaron, is a Breton. I've created a custom class called a Magica Knight. Now, first of all, to explain the Breton, The Breton starts off with 0.5 enhanced magic. Basically, so your magicka is determined by your intelligence. Normally that would mean 60 intelligence equals 60 magicka. We basically combined the Breton racial and the mage birth sign in order to double our spell points. As you can see, 60 intelligence should normally equal 60 spell points. However, because we're getting plus 0.50 twice, it equals 120. Therefore, when I have 100 intelligence, I will have 200 magicka. This is before any mage robes or anything that boosts our maximum magicka. For a lot of characters, alchemy is a must, but I went ahead and forego that. I'm not going to do any crafting other than a little bit of enchanting, possibly. But let's go over the magicka knight class I went. So, what I've done is I've made the character combat-oriented, thus combat skills will increase slightly faster. Long blade and block, so we're going to do a sword and shield with heavy armor, so this is a tanky build. Restoration and mysticism. Mysticism is teleportation, levitation, things of that nature. Restoration just heals yourself. And then, of course, we've got illusion, conjuration, destruction, and enchanting, the rest of the magic. Well, basically, the rest of the magic. And then we got sneaking. So we are a sneaky, tanky, strong spellcaster. That's basically it. We're kind of like a battle mage, except not quite. The only real thing I'm missing is alchemy, and alchemy can and will make a character ridiculously overpowered. We're talking god mode toward the end of the game with alchemy. But you'll notice that any skills I didn't pick just got dumped into the miscellaneous pool, meaning that all of these skills are still accessible to me. They just will not govern the speed at which I level up. I level up from raising major skills and minor skills. You notice that I don't have any factions yet, but that will change. Now you notice that reputation and bounty, obviously we all know what bounty is, but reputation is as you complete different quests for different people, your reputation goes up. There's a lot of content in Morrowind that is gated behind reputation, so doing side quests is good. Also, there are a lot of different things that can actually be bypassed by having high reputation. Like, normally you'd have to prove yourself for one part. Well, you've got a super high reputation, so hold on a second. Don't you know who I am? Oh, wait. Now, in terms of equipment, your ragdoll pretty much says everything. So this common shirt, for example, we can click on the common shirt, it'll go into the inventory, or we can drag it back onto him. Now, you notice that you click on items in your inventory and they get applied to your mouse cursor. Then you click on your ragdoll, and it will be applied there. Likewise, this engraved ring of healing can be done this way, and it is equipped. When a ring like that is equipped, you can actually then see it down here in your inventory, and you'll be able to cast the spell directly from the item. Now, if you want this map up in the top corner to stay with you, you'll notice it disappears with the menu. You can go ahead and click this little X box here. Now it is pinned, and you will be able to see it whenever you want. Likewise, you can pin this, but that's just silly in my opinion. Now you notice that when you talk to someone like him, you'll be able to ask for duties. You'll find that duties, mission, different topics will tell you to see this person, and so you know you're supposed to report to this person. Well, that's in Balmorra, so where's Balmorra? And he explains where Balmorra is, and you can take the Silt Strider to Balmorra. Fast, cheap, safe. So, the Silt Strider there, they explain that Silt Striders carry passengers and cargo all across Vardenfell. But now that we've learned all that information, we can hit J. And what happens is the character maintains a journal as to what they should be doing. It's a very awesome mechanic because ever since the Tribunal expansion pack and onward, we have had the opportunity to click on any of these specific information like this, and now we actually can read his dialogue. Once again, the topic's there. Now what's really cool is we can click on quests, and pretty much all main and minor quests will be displayed here. A few minor quests or eluded tasks that you can do won't appear here, but for the most part, everything is tracked through your log. But you'll notice that if you stole certain items, you can go ahead and sell them in the trade house here. So basically, I'm offering him all the silverware I stole from the excise office. As a result, I should get 55 gold. Now he can also teach spells. You'll notice things that you're unable to learn right now are kind of off-colored, but everything else displays normally. Now, I don't want to work on destruction until later, so these aren't even a consideration for my character, but if you're playing a pure mage and you want to get started, obviously you pick up Fireball right away, and then you play with it the best you can. Now you notice that pretty much everything a vendor has is available in their store in some place or another. Just keep in mind you must never try to sell a vendor their own goods. If you try to do this, it can be very bad, as in they will report the crime immediately. You'll notice that there is no stolen flag, no little red hand in this game. You have to be fairly intelligent about what belongs to who and what you want to do, because if you try to take something from somebody's house, they're going to get pissed, and that's all there is to it. Now, you are supposed to go to the Silt Strader, which is right over there, to advance your character. However, the option exists to go into a dungeon right at the start. There are slavers there. They'll probably make you dead. It's always good to just throw on a quick save with F5 before going into them. Now you notice once you draw your weapon, there are two modes. You can toggle casting, and basically your hands come up as if to cast a spell. Likewise, you switch it to your weapon. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to sneak up on this guy. You notice it doesn't work, but it was definitely worth a shot. Now, there is no missing in this combat mod, so you basically have to stab your enemy dead and pray that you do more damage than them in the beginning. Eventually, you will gain access to block via a shield or other abilities. I mean, I can switch to my casting mode and immediately cast my heal. And so I was never in any real danger as long as I keep in mind that I have that heal ability open to me. You'll notice that there's chop, slash, and thrust. Now by default you will always use your best ability, which is thrust. However, if you want to use different damage types, like instead of piercing damage you wanted to do slashing damage, what you do is you hit escape, you would go to options, and you would disable always use best attack, and then depending on what direction you were holding, you would do a different style of attack. It's kind of silly, but that's pretty much the way it works. Now what I'm immediately going to do is, I'm looking at this 4-4, this dagger isn't as good, but I'm going to loot everything anyway, and the reason I'm going to do that is to sell for later. Now you can see there's throwing stars, which are actually throwing weapons, kind of hilarious. There's a cloth left bracer, which is armor, so we'll go ahead and equip that. There are bracers, there are pauldrons, pretty much everything from Daggerfall makes a return. Probes. Now you notice lockpicks and probes. A lockpick has a limited number of uses and will help you open up a chest, whereas a probe will help you disarm a trap. Now what's really cool is in random crates you can find things like a Scroll of Unhinging, which will open locks, soul gems, gold, all kinds of awesome stuff, and even moon sugar. The interesting thing about moon sugar and skooma is while you have it on you, the NPC vendors who don't deal in illegal drugs will not deal with you at all. They will literally say, before I deal with you, you've got to get rid of the heat, or you've got to get rid of the illegal stuff. And there really isn't any problem getting rid of the illegal stuff. It's as easy as opening up your inventory, going to the moon sugar, clicking on it. Now, if you click anywhere in the game world where it has this icon, it's going to drop it on the ground right at your feet. However, let's go ahead and pick it up again. Let's say that you want to place it in a certain spot. What we'll do is we'll click here, and now we can actually put it in this particular spot as long as we're close. If we're too far away, it'll have that drop icon again. However, if we're close enough, we can place it directly there or directly here. And this way, when you actually get a player home, you will be able to place items like this. However, there aren't any physics attached to them. They'll literally exist where you place them, and if you bump into them, it won't do anything to them. But, you know, you can move things around. It's very neat. So you could just drop this moon sugar off and get it later. But we look at gold. Now, what's interesting is sometimes they call gold drakes, sometimes they call it gold. And it's fairly inconsistent what they call it. They are all septums. However, they are called different things in different areas. For the most part, you'll want to loot dungeons thoroughly for when you're... But for the most part, you'll want to loot dungeons thoroughly up to a limit. You'll see that your limit in the corner there, where I'm rotating the mouse cursor, is actually your carry weight limit. Now from the town where you start, all you have to do is head up this hill and head to the Silt Strider. The Silt Strider is pretty much the first place you want to go. Go ahead and travel to Balmorra. Should be about 14 gold more or less depending on your barter skill. Time will travel when fast traveling through a Silt Strider. Until you gain higher levels with the Mages Guild, the Silt Strider will really be the only way to fast travel, other than, of course, accessing boats later on. Now, in Balmorra, I highly recommend signing up with both the Fighters Guild and the Mages Guild straight ahead. When you sign up for the Fighters Guild, you will gain access to a guild chest, which has all kinds of awesome treasures in it, specifically healing potions, stamina potions, arrows and bolts, things of that nature. The Mages Guild will unlock training where you'll be able to learn brand new spells, which are very much needed. Now keep in mind that random crates in town are in fact lootable, and they contain 5 gold, sometimes even things that are worth selling, such as this redware vase for 14 gold. And sometimes you run across an awesome treasure like this Restore Endurance Superb. Either way, you don't have to worry about accidentally stealing people's stuff when it comes to outdoor environments like this in a town. Now, if you're in someone's private vineyard, for example, yeah, you need to worry. But outside in the town, no big deal. Now, after you sign up with the Mages Guild and Fighters Guild, it's recommended that you head across the river, across this bridge here, around onto the main street in the northeast corner. The second left, you will find the House of the Man that continues the main quest. When you proceed through dialogue with him, you will receive 200 septums and orders to create a cover life for yourself. Basically, he wants you to sign on with the Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, Imperial Cult, or Imperial Legion. The Imperial Cult is the Temple of the Nine Divines, basically. Everybody knows what the Imperial Legion is. There are no Stormcloaks, so don't worry about it. If you want to join the Imperial Legion, there is nothing stopping you. The only thing that might come in conflict are the Imperial Cult and the Tribunal Temple. If you decide to raise your reputation with the Tribunal Temple, it may come into conflict with the Imperial Cult, as they are opposing beliefs. The Tribunal Temple believes in Morrowind's 3 living gods, whom you will actually speak to during this quest. However, the Imperial Cult believes in the 9 divines. As you can see, hitting your journal has a full update explaining the things that happened to you. If you go back, it will actually have the previous steps of the quest all spelled out in your own writing. And it will actually have the day at which this occurred, so you actually have a sense of time and how many days have actually passed since you've entered the world. This creates an awesome sense of narrative that wasn't present in earlier or later Elder Scrolls games. No matter what you do, no matter which guilds you sign on with, your quest will be journaled, and the days at which things happened will be cataloged for the future, which is freaking awesome. Other guilds you can join are the Thieves Guild and the Morag Tong. There are 3 great noble houses. You can join any one of them. During the day, it's recommended you go to both the pawn shop and the armorer. The idea is that you need to outfit your character suitably before you go and start facing guild quests. Remember that pawn shops will buy any type of item but won't give you favorable prices, whereas you will get more favorable prices at specific shops, which will only buy certain types of items. However, there are miscellaneous junk type items that only exist to be sold to vendors. Those miscellaneous junk items will only be able to be sold at a pawn shop. You'll notice that if you have any moon sugar or skooma on you, any lawful vendors, ones who are not criminal-minded, will refuse to deal with you. In order to deal with them, it's fairly simple. All you have to do is go to your menu, select the moon sugar, drop it on the ground, find any skooma you may have, drop that on the ground, and now you should be fine. Go ahead and speak to him. As you can see, he has an iron saber. As we've created a character with long blade skill, we're going to want to go ahead and purchase that. We're also going to want to go ahead and sell pretty much all the junk items that we accumulated in the dungeon. As you can see, it's always wise to keep a secondary weapon on you even when buying a new one. You'll notice that all items have durability. This iron saber's condition is 700 out of 700. However, the condition of items does deteriorate as you use it, and as it deteriorates, the effective damage it deals does go down. You won't look that impressive in the beginning, but a little bit of gear goes a long way, and you will definitely be a step ahead of anyone who just goes and tries to kill things without any armor whatsoever. For a new player, I recommend alternating between the Fighters and Mages Guild quests, so that you don't get too far ahead on any quest chain and get too difficult quests. It also never hurts to roam around and check things out. I hope this primer has helped you to be able to get into Morrowind and make your Morrowind experience just a little bit better. Yes, it is dated in terms of graphics, however, in terms of an open world, exploration, characters, and general story, I believe this is the best Elder Scrolls game in the series. I will be doing more modding videos, hopefully more frequently. So until then, I'll see y'all next time. For constant updates about myself and my projects, check out my Twitter feed. Once or twice a week, I do live streams on one of the two channels below. And finally, if you like what you see here on this channel, it is being Patreon funded. Go to patreon.com/Zhakaron and help support these videos. Please like and comment, and I'll see y'all next time.